Smile 2 came out this weekend, and it was a lot more polar and divisive than I expected it to be. I think it's interesting how people seem to prefer both the original and this new sequel in equal measure. I also think it's interesting that people are pointing to objective technical elements to base their arguments off of. I've been seeing two emerging forms of thought on this. People who prefer the first movie said that it had a more kind of indie horror feel and a more esoteric soundtrack, etc. People who liked the sequel better said that it had tighter pacing, a more polished production feel, and had more of a pop sensibility to it over the first one. While this is what people are saying, my theory is that most people's preference over which Smile movie they liked more is actually based off of which central character they related to more. And at the risk of sounding hypocritical, I'm including myself in this thesis. Writer-director Parker Finn did a phenomenal job crafting two very fleshed out, believable, nuanced characters. I would argue that both films are a character study on how the different protagonists approach trauma and mental health issues. Rose is slated as this very kind character with this sense of disorganized attachment and conflict avoidance, where she sort of deals with her own struggles by kind of projecting out and trying to help other people through theirs. Skye is more of this entertainer type. The movie kind of implies that she has borderline personality disorder or something, and she deals with her issues more by looking outward for validation or to substances to sort of fix her own problems. I know people who are like both of these characters in real life, but personally I relate more to Skye, and I think that's ultimately why I enjoyed the sequel better, even though I don't necessarily think it's technically more well done. In the first movie, I cognitively understand why Rose is doing what she's doing. Her choices make sense and don't feel out of character or random based on the way the movie portrays her. But I still felt sort of disconnected from her in a way because I wouldn't make the choices that she made. I don't face my problems altruistically. I just don't have a lot in common with Rose. So while I felt bad for her while the movie was going on and I didn't want what was happening to her to happen to her, I found it harder to connect to her and to feel what she was feeling herself. In contrast, a lot of Skye's interpersonal dynamics really resonated with me. People who didn't like the sequel as much have been saying that Skye just isn't relatable enough because she's a celebrity or whatever. She's kind of this movie version of this Gabby Hanna type character, it feels like. But I don't think you really need to be famous or even an entertainer to relate to and understand Skye's personality. I've met people like her who aren't famous. I am a people like her who isn't famous. And I've had plenty of interactions with others in my life that Parker Finn and Naomi Scott really well captured in this movie. Mild spoiler warning here. Skye's argument in the car with the Ray Nicholson character was really triggering to me because I've been in a very similar conversation to that. I know what it's like to have an argument devolve quickly into this chaotic nightmare where the person you're talking to is just quickly become someone that you don't even recognize anymore. And this is what Parker Finn does. He masterfully makes you the characters that you're watching in the movie. The first movie is all from Rose's perspective. You are Rose when you watch the first Smile movie. You see what she sees. You're meant to feel what she feels. And the same is true of Skye as a character. She's equally well fleshed out, and I just related to her more quickly and more easily because I'm more naturally like that. I'm not saying that remotely makes Skye a superior character to Rose or that she's better crafted. It's more an individual preference on my part. Both movies, like I said, are objectively very well crafted character studies, and I think which one you like more will just depend on which character you're able to connect with easier, which one you're able to become more effectively. And in a way, I kind of think this divide in public opinion about which movie is better actually kind of proves that both movies do exactly what they set out to do, which is to make you put yourself in the shoes of a specific character. A lot of people, like I mentioned, are praising the first Smile now that the sequel is out for its unique, esoteric, indie kind of vibe. These people are criticizing Smile 2 because it's more mainstream or something. It feels like a movie that would be released by Warner Brothers or whatever. From kind of an objective standpoint, it's true that Smile 1 feels more indie and that Smile 2 feels more pop sensibility, for lack of a better way of putting it. It feels more mainstream, I guess. And I think this is going to be a really unpopular opinion, but I don't think that those two different traits of storytelling in cinema are necessarily better than the other in any way. I think people like to think that they're more educated or more avant-garde or something like that if they don't like stuff that has a more mainstream feel and prefer pieces that have a more esoteric kind of sensibility to them. My argument is that this thought process isn't true and it's kind of just a cope. Some mainstream, really popular pieces are just powerful and well made, and some independent work is still lazy and derivative. And just because something is niche, that doesn't mean that it automatically holds artistic integrity. If a work is artistically honest and resonates with people in an authentic way, then it's a good piece regardless of where it comes from. I want to be clear, I think both Smile movies accomplish this in pretty equal measure. I also think it's why opinions are so polar on which one is better, and I think that that divide is only going to deepen as more and more people see the movie, because there's going to be more people that relate to Rose or that relate to Sky. And again, I think that actually kind of proves that both movies accomplish what they set out to via kind of different characters as vehicles, if that makes sense. Look, I'm not trying to totally glaze Parker Finn here. It's not like either Smile movie is perfect or that either one is technically executed as ideally as it could be, at least in my opinion. I actually think they both suffer from some pretty serious issues that I wish both films didn't have. I might do like a more long-form video on Smile 2 now that it's out, but for now I just wanted to share kind of my thought and my theory on why people are so like divided on which movie they liked more, and why I think that's actually kind of good for both movies.